The first brushstroke of beige paint hit my satellite dish at 8:14 a.m., sharp, right as the morning news anchor was mid-sentence about a record heat wave. By the third splatter, my screen froze, pixelated, and died. I stood there in my driveway, coffee in hand, watching in disbelief as the president of our HOA, Karen Hernandez, balanced on my ladder, in my yard, slapping beige paint over my brand-new satellite dish like she was restoring the Sistine Chapel. When I asked what in the world she thought she was doing, she looked down over her oversized sunglasses and said, "Neutral tones only. The dish violates Section 7C. Then she kept painting. That's how it started, one dish, one HOA president with a paintbrush and a 3-day internet blackout that would eventually blow up her entire world. I live on the edge of Willow Creek Estates, the last house before the trees start. It's quiet, peaceful, and cursed by ancient cable lines slower than dial-up. I work remotely as a software engineer, so a stable connection isn't just a luxury, it's survival. When I installed the dish, I followed the law to the letter. The FCCC specifically protects private satellite equipment. I even sent the HOA a neat little packet mock-ups, measurements, photos, the whole 9 yards. Karen denied it anyway. Her email, written in Comic Sans, no less said, "We want harmony, not hardware." That should have been my warning sign. At first, she stuck to passive-aggressive tactics. Courtesy reminders about unauthorized exterior modifications. A glossy brochure about visual uniformity. Once I found a sticky note on my mailbox that just said warm sand circled twice, it was a paint color. But when she realized I wasn't biting her tone, changed. One night she texted the HOA group chat. Some people think rules don't apply to them. The next morning, paint samples were taped to my mailbox. And then came the ladder. She must have taken it from my garage. I saw the residue where my label used to be. I walked out just in time to see her applying the final layer. "Your dish reflects light into my dining room window," she announced as if she were preaching to the congregation. "Your house faces west," I said. "My dish faces south." She blinked behind those shades. "It's still offensive." I told her touching someone else's property was vandalism. She told me to file a complaint through proper channels. Then she climbed down, left paint flecks drying on her shoes, and strutted off like she'd done the Lord's work. By noon, my internet was dead. Completely. I called the provider. They said the reflective coating was blocking the signal, and the soonest repair was 3 days out. 3 days. For me, that meant no work, no pay. So I drove to a coffee shop to use their Wi-Fi. And of course, there she was. Karen, sipping an iced latte, telling another neighbor, "Actions have consequences." When she saw me, she smiled sweetly. "Oh dear, I hope your Wi-Fi isn't acting up." That was the moment I decided this wasn't just annoyance, it was war. Now, revenge wasn't my first instinct. I'm not that guy. But when someone wields HOA bylaws like a weapon, you don't win by yelling, you win by strategy. So I studied those bylaws. Every word. And there it was, a clause about shared utility infrastructure. Turns out the HOA's main internet relay box, basically the neighborhood's signal hub, sat right behind my fence. I didn't have to touch a thing, because when you cover metal equipment in beige latex paint, it traps heat and interferes with signal reception. The next morning, I casually washed what paint I could off my dish. Karen was pruning her petunias, smug as ever. "Good," she said. "Glad you fixed it. Maybe we'll see fewer complaints now." 2 hours later, her husband's SUV screeched into their driveway. I heard her shouting from inside about the router not working. By evening, the HOA Facebook page was chaos. Outage across Willow Creek. No Wi-Fi west of Birch Lane. I didn't lift a finger. Karma did it for me. The technicians came in neon vests, traced the issue to paint particulate obstruction. The cause, beige overspray coating the relay vent. Karen stormed into my yard screaming that I'd sabotaged it. Karen. I said I'm still waiting for my own repair. Maybe it's contagious. She didn't laugh. She called an emergency HOA meeting on Zoom. which ironically no one could attend because the internet was still down. That night, the local news ran a segment. Paint contamination disables HOA network. The camera even caught her Lexus trunk open paint cans visible. It was beautiful. But instead of backing off, she doubled down. Claimed I planted evidence. Said the wind must have carried the paint. She demanded an inspection of my property for unsanctioned devices. So I sent an email to the HOA's legal rep. Attached time-stamped photos of her on my ladder, the technician's report citing paint as the root cause, and CC'd the news reporter for good measure. By morning, the group chat was a bonfire. Neighbors who used to worship her now wanted her gone. One message said, "She tried to paint over the internet." I stayed quiet, smiled, let her crumble under her own beige empire. But deep down I knew it wasn't over. People like Karen don't quit, they escalate. A few days later, her husband Richard emailed everyone under the title, Acting HOA President. The letter said we'd all need communication equipment inspections to ensure electromagnetic harmony. Translation: Karen's back using him as her puppet. I replied, per FCC regulations, any inspection of private communication devices constitutes trespassing. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "Good morning," Richard said. Voice trembling. "Karen just wants to make things right. Maybe you could, stop involving the FCC." I sighed. "Richard, take a break. Seriously, she's not okay." That night, a white SUV with community compliance unit magnets parked near my house. 2 guys with clipboards started taking photos of my yard. I asked for ID. Their badges looked like they'd been printed at Office Depot. When I pointed that out, they said they were subcontracted by the HOA. I started recording on my phone. "Just so you know, the FCC still has an open case here." They exchanged looks and left within minutes. 2 hours later, Richard called again. "Please, don't call the cops," he begged. She hired them off Craigslist. That's when I realized this wasn't just control, it was obsession. I installed motion cameras. 2 nights later, 12:43 a.m., they caught her, Karen herself, sneaking into my yard in a hoodie flashlight in hand, crouched by my dish. She had a wrench. The footage was perfect. I sent it to the HOA board, the local police, and the FCC contact all in one email. No commentary. Just the video. By lunch, the group chat exploded. She's trespassing now. Is she trying to kill the internet again? Even her die-hard defenders turned on her. That afternoon, a patrol car rolled up to her house. 2 officers knocked. She came out, all calm smiles, like she'd been expecting them. 10 minutes later, they left without cuffs. She waved at me across the lawn. That night, she posted, "Certain individuals are fabricating evidence to discredit me." 20 angry reactions before she deleted it. The next morning, hammering sounds echoed from her yard. I peeked. She was building something under a tarp. I jogged past, pretending not to care. She chirped, "Just a little DIY project. You'll love it." 2 days later, her project revealed itself a new satellite dish painted beige facing directly into a tree. She complained to the provider that my neighbor's dish is stealing her bandwidth. I walked over, coffee in hand. "That's not how satellites work, Karen." Her eyes were wild. "You think you're so clever. You and your little government friends." "Karen," I said evenly, "you're one HOA memo away from a restraining order. You'll regret this," she snapped, pointing at me like a cartoon villain. And I did regret it because I underestimated just how far she'd go. 3 days later, my Wi-Fi died again. I went outside and heard a low humming sound. Karen's new setup was now attached to a signal amplifier, an illegal one. The thing looked like a car battery wired to a death wish. I warned her, "That's illegal. You could fry every modem in the neighborhood." She smirked. "It's called innovation." 4 hours later, a black SUV rolled up. The FCC had returned. The investigator scanned the air, frowned, and asked her to shut it off. "I know my rights," she shouted. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "decorations don't emit electromagnetic radiation." That night, they confiscated the amplifier and issued her an official federal violation, her second one in 2 weeks. The next morning, Richard's SUV was gone, replaced by a moving truck. I thought it was finally over. But 2 days later, a letter appeared on my doorstep. Handwritten, no envelope. Enjoy your signal while it lasts. Control always returns to those who deserve it. My stomach dropped. Then came the real storm. At 3 a.m., I woke to a strange flickering glow. My satellite dish was blinking on and off rapid pulses. Every porch light on the block was strobing in sync. I checked my phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. It felt like we'd slipped into a sci-fi movie. By sunrise, chaos. Garage doors opening and closing on their own, sprinklers flooding lawns, Alexa devices saying, "Signal lost on repeat." The FCC confirmed the source. Multiple hidden repeaters, buried around the neighborhood, broadcasting her old interference pattern. They dug up 3 behind fences. One was buried under my rose bushes. She'd planted them weeks ago, a final act of revenge. When they dismantled the devices, the screens flashed one line of text before going dark. "Harmony requires order," with a smiley face. That was Karen's legacy control disguised as harmony. She'd started by painting over a dish and ended by trying to control the entire digital pulse of our neighborhood. When they finally arrested her again, she didn't scream this time. She just smiled and said, "You can't silence the signal." I watched from my porch as they took her away, the same porch where this all began. Her house was foreclosed soon after, stripped bare. But every so often, late at night when the wind's still and the street's quiet, I swear I can hear it, the faint hum of electronics, steady and rhythmic like something waiting to reboot. And when that happens, I look up at my dish gleaming silver again and remind myself of one thing. Control isn't harmony. It's just noise disguised as order.